Is anyone out there listening? Good. You've tuned into Lavender Town Radio, the only station brave enough to broadcast the static between worlds. Tonight, we have a story for you, a whisper from the shadows, a tale woven from the dark pages of the Pokédex that they never wanted you to read. But first, a small favor. If you find a chilling comfort in our stories, show your support by hitting the like button. It's a small click for you, but it's a beacon for us in the digital darkness. And to ensure you never miss a transmission, make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell. It helps our signal cut through the noise. All right, the signal is clear. Now, are you comfortable? Good. Let's begin.
My name is Elara. Rhys and I are a team. Always have been. We run a small private detective agency tucked away on the second floor of an old building on the outskirts of Celadon City. Agency is a generous word. It's a single room that smells of stale coffee and closed cases, with two desks facing each other, forming a small island of order in a sea of chaos. Rhys calls the mess creative. I call it a fire hazard. That's how we work. I'm the numbers person, the one for rules, for cold, hard logic. I can find a pattern in a jumble of random data like an astronomer finding a new constellation. Rhys, on the other hand, is the one for feelings, for the unwritten rules. He can look at a painting and not just see colors and shapes. He sees the artist's intent, the sorrow behind a brushstroke. He's the intuition, and I'm the analysis. Together, we've solved cases that the Kanto PD deemed too weird. A missing persons case where the culprit was a panicked Abra that had accidentally teleported the victim onto a roof, or a series of ghostly thefts that turned out to just be a mischievous Kecleon. We thought we'd seen it all, until we found the cicada, or rather, the Ninjask. It wasn't a case that walked through our door. It was something Rhys found while trawling the darker corners of the internet, a deep web forum for cryptography enthusiasts and unsolved mysteries. It was an anonymous post with only a single black and white image. A Ninjask in close-up, its wings vibrating at a speed that seemed to warp the very air around it. Beneath it, a simple line of text in a computer font. We seek those who can hear the silence. Find the message. 3301. A new ARG? I asked, sipping my coffee. Looks well produced. Rhys shook his head, his eyes glued to the screen. No, Elara, this is different. It's cold. It doesn't have the fanfare of a game. It feels like a test. He was right. It had a weight to it, a disquieting seriousness. And that line, hear the silence, it wasn't just a phrase. It was the first riddle. I spent the first 2 days doing what I do best, analysis. I ran the image file through every piece of digital forensic software I had. Steganography, metadata analysis, searching for hidden EXIF data. Nothing. Just a suspiciously clean JPEG file. I tried inverting the colors, adjusting the contrast, looking for hidden images. Still nothing. It's just a picture, Rhys, I said at the end of the second day, frustration creeping into my voice. Maybe we're overthinking this. Rhys was sitting across from me, but he wasn't looking at his computer. He was staring at a painting on the wall, a print of a Pidgeot in flight. You're looking at it wrong, Elara. The problem isn't what's in the picture, it's what's not. He turned to look at me. Have you ever seen a Ninjask stand still? I blinked. He was right. Ninjask are the embodiment of motion. They are always vibrating, always moving. Even in a snapshot, you'd expect a motion blur. But this photo, it was perfectly sharp, as if the Ninjask had posed. It's too still, Rhys said. It's unnatural. And then it clicked. A connection sparked by two clues: hearing the silence and too still. I opened my Pokédex again, not the commercial version, but the research database I'd compiled since my time on Cinnabar. I looked up Ninjask, and there it was, a little-known detail in a research paper on bioacoustics. Due to moving at supersonic speeds, the sound of an Ninjask's wing beats is often beyond the threshold of human hearing, above 20,000 hertz, creating a zone of silence around it as it flies past. "It's not silent," I whispered to myself. "It's just too fast." "Exactly," Rhys said, as if he'd read my mind. "So what if the audio file is just too fast?" I looked at him, then at the image file. "Rhys, you're a genius!" I opened a professional audio editing program. Instead of opening a .wav or .mp3, I forced the program to open the Ninjask's .jpeg file. A waveform appeared, just as I'd expected. A flat line. Absolute silence. "Now let's see what's inside that silence," I said, my hand trembling slightly. I used a tool to time stretch the audio file, not by 2x or 4x. I stretched it out 1,000 times over. The flat line began to vibrate. A faint digital hiss came from the speakers, and then inside that hiss, another sound emerged, a hyper-fast sound, almost a zip, which when stretched became a clear sequence of electronic clicks. It was the cry of a rotom, broadcasting in Morse code. We recorded it, translated it. It wasn't a phrase, it was a set of coordinates. A location. The abandoned power plant. Route 10, Kanto. "Well," Rhys said, leaning back in his chair, "the game is on." The old power plant was a colossal metal skeleton rusting under the Kanto sky. We went at night, not for dramatic effect, but because that's when it was quietest. The silence here was different. It wasn't empty, it was heavy, as if the air was compressed by the weight of dead machines and forgotten secrets. The smell of ozone and damp metal filled the air. We searched for hours. No posters, no symbols, just rows of giant generators, silent in the dark. "Maybe we're in the wrong place," I said, shining my flashlight on a wrecked control panel. "No," Rhys whispered. He was standing perfectly still, his eyes closed. "Listen." I listened. At first I heard nothing, but then I felt it, a faint vibration under my feet, and a tiny, high-pitched hum right at the edge of human hearing. I pulled out my frequency meter. It immediately sprang to life. "You're right, something's active, emitting an ultrasonic frequency." We followed the signal. It led us to a smaller server room in the back. Inside, about a dozen smaller generators were running, tiny lights on them blinking weakly. "This is the puzzle," I said, sweeping my device across the room. "Each machine is emitting a different frequency. They seem random." We were stuck, a meaningless jumble of data. I tried to find a mathematical pattern, a repetition, but there was nothing. My logic was failing. "The problem isn't in here, Elara," Rhys said, looking out a broken window. "It's out there. What could affect the frequencies of electrical devices from a distance?" I searched my memory, old lectures on Pokémon behavior. "Rotom," I muttered. "The Pokédex says they can be influenced by special motors. But there are no motors here." I scrolled through my research documents, and then I saw it. A side note in a paper by Professor Oak. An interesting observation. A rotom's electromagnetic waves seem to be significantly distorted when near areas of strong natural magnetism, such as caves with large iron ore deposits. Rhys looked at me, his eyes lighting up. "Magnetic fields! Rock tunnel!" Rock Tunnel was just a few miles north, a massive rock formation famous for its iron ore deposits. "We're not solving the puzzle here," he said. "We're in the concert hall. We have to find the right seat to hear the music." We left the plant and walked in the dark, heading towards Rock Tunnel. I held the meter, my eyes glued to the screen displaying chaotic waveforms. Rhys acted as the compass, feeling for the subtle shifts in the magnetic field. "Stop," he said, as we reached a small hill where the air felt thicker. On my screen, the magic happened. The random waveforms on my screen suddenly aligned themselves. They were no longer chaos. They became a pattern, a melody. I hooked the device up to a small speaker, a familiar yet unsettlingly creepy tune in this context played out in the night. Jigglypuff. A lullaby? Rhys was confused. "No," I said, my brain firing on all cylinders. "The melody isn't the clue. The frequency is." I analyzed the key note of the melody, A flat. Its frequency was 415.3 hertz. A strange number, but after converting it across radio bands, I found a match, an old AM radio station, one that had been defunct for years. A station whose last recorded broadcast originated from Lavender Town. A silence fell over us, heavier than the one in the power plant. Our fun game of codes and mysteries had suddenly turned very, very dark. Rhys looked at me, his smile gone. "Rhys," he said, "Elara, I have a bad feeling about this." And for the first time in my life, I completely agreed with his gut feeling.
The transmission is ending. The static is creeping back in. Thank you for listening to Lavender Town Radio. Remember, the Pokédex only tells you half the story. We're here for the other half. Your thoughts on this story are valuable. They tell us what scares you. Leave them in the comments. To help us continue broadcasting from the abyss, please hit the like button and most importantly, subscribe. More subscribers mean a stronger signal, and a stronger signal means more secrets can be revealed. This is Lavender Town Radio, signing off. Be sure to check your shadows. You never know what might be listening.